The Oklahoma City Thunder fall in Game 6 in Dallas, ending their season. There are some tough lessons to learn for Oklahoma City after this series.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and Inside the Thunder beat writer, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by our good friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. We are talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder being ousted from the NBA playoffs with some tough lessons to learn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. The Oklahoma City Thunder fall in Game 6, losing this one 117-116 as Daniel Bell is pantomiming something. What's up, Daniel? What's up, Daniel? Thunder lose. Any thoughts? No, none at all. Thank you for the appearance, Daniel. That's
Basketball Guru D.
Follow Basketball Guru D. A lot of great work, including 163, Mr. Scores tied after 6 games. Daniel Bell, 636. There he is. Daniel Bell, it's been a pleasure. Can't wait to see you. Thank you. That's selfless of you. Selfless of you, Daniel. Can't wait to see you in the morning, buddy. Less than 24 hours away. Anyway, what a start to the show. The Thunder lose in Game 6. I think that this game really showed a lot of different lessons that the Thunder can learn. Overall, Oklahoma City was a very uncommonly mature team, which is how you get to 57 wins in the toughest conference we've ever seen, which is how you get to be the youngest number 1 seed of all time, which is how you get to enjoy all the Thunder enjoyed. You don't get to have back-to-back seasons of 15-plus wins improvement without having that uncommon maturity. So the fact that they were young and have lessons to learn does not negate all of what we saw to this point. Getting through the first round for the first time since 2016 and just everything that happened. This season was a fantastic year for OKC. But clearly, when you go up against the likes of the Dallas Mavericks, you saw some of the differences. And one of those differences you can just see from the opening tip of this game. When you watch this game, the Thunder had a different level of urgency, a different level of intensity, a different level of connectivity defensively, and just laying it all out on the court, which is what you would expect in an elimination game. However, that's the level of intensity that the Mavericks possessed the entire series. And the Dallas Mavericks outworked, outclassed, and out-efforted the Thunder all series long. It took until their backs were firmly against the wall. When did the Thunder play with urgency this series? They played with urgency at the 9:33 mark in Game 4 to save their season from going down 3-1, and they played with urgency in Game 6 with elimination on their doorstep. There's a difference in not being too wound up, not being too complacent, not being too kind of jittery and pressing the issue too much, and also not being complacent. There's a big difference in that you will learn as you progress through the postseason. I keep using this example of Shai. Look at what Shai was, even his second go-around in the playoffs. Of course, his first go-around with the Clippers was a totally different dynamic, but his second go-around with the Thunder, it was even in the bubble. It was even after a long layoff, a second off season, people were calling it back then. It was even with a better supporting cast with Chris Paul to tutor you. All the benefits he had, no travel, no crowd, anything. He did not perform well overall in that postseason. These are lessons that every player has to learn. So I think that the emotional rash reaction is going to be that of a more doomsday tone, because you look at this season and the narratives that were built in this year came back to bite you, right? For a lot of this series, Josh Giddey did not play well. The rebounding was a huge issue. And then you saw that the Mavericks were able to outperform and shoot better in this series, even though the Thunder have been a better shooting team this season. All that together, I don't think that it's ever as good as you think it is or as bad as you think it is. So it's going to be easy today to be maybe doom and gloom because you saw the rebounding issues coming. You saw the Josh Giddey fit thing coming. And then also you couple that with, this is a pretty wide open, or as wide open as you can expect one of the more predictable sports to be for quite some time. I think that that's missing the forest for the trees a little bit. Setting aside how young and everything that the Thunder accomplished, they're going to have many cracks at this. 2010, they made the playoffs and won 50 games. They lost in the first round. 2011, they lost to these Mavericks in the second round. Like this stuff takes progress and takes progression and takes steps over time. This is not the one shot at it. The only way in which this is the one shot at it is the Thunder are plagued with injuries. And in that case, this would have always been the one shot at it, and they would have always not had these lessons. Because before you dive into what they did or didn't do at the trade deadline, before you dive into what they did or didn't do last draft, whatever you want to talk about the roster construction, before you dive into any of that, the bottom line is this team did not have the chutzpah necessary for 6 games to win a series. You cannot dig your grave so early in the majority of these games like they did, even in the game 4 that they won, and win 4 out of 7. You just can't do it. And then in this one, you come out with your hair on fire, you grow multiple double-digit leads, and then you see them dissipate, and you see the Mavericks take this win. I think ultimately this game is a game that Thunder fans will sit and say, see, we told you, right? We told you that if the Thunder could shoot better from 3, they'd have a chance. And instead of shooting a dreadful 28% from 3 or 30% from 3, they improved that to 36% from 3 tonight. They played more like themselves. They were able to get to their spots in the mid-range more. They're able to loosen up the defense more. They won points in the paint. 48 of them, a more traditional look for the Thunder. They won fast break points. They forced 17 turnovers, and they shot 36% from 3. Like, when the Thunder play that way, they're going to have a shot to beat anybody, including these Dallas Mavericks. They just did not play that way enough in this series. And so I think that this is going to be an exceptionally frustrating result because it felt like the Thunder played better tonight than Dallas did. And for a game to end on free throws is going to be tough. But ultimately, I struggle to fault Shai at all for trying to go make a play, especially as the team's leader, especially for as good as PJ shot this series, and especially for as great as he played to even keep this thing close for Oklahoma City. So, that is an isolated incident of like a bad result. You can question a lot of different things otherwise about this game, but before you even dive into the weeds of this contest, I think it was abundantly clear that Thunder had to learn some lessons this series, and they're going to grow from this. Like this, again, barring injury, which if they get hurt, then that's going to be the case for every team, all 30 of the NBA. Like if the Nuggets roll in next year and they get hurt injuries to Jokic and to Murray, their season's over. If the Celtics roll in next year and they get injuries to Tatum and Brown, God forbid, their season's over. Like it does not matter how good you are if you're hurt. So that's like, barring that, they have the talent, they have the assets, they have the fortitude, they have the GM in place, the coach in place, they have everything in place to have many, many, many cracks at this. That's not to say that this season was perfect, but it was as close to perfect as you can get if you want to be genuine about the situation. I know it's sort of taboo to say, especially in more of a football culture that Oklahoma is. The goal this season was not exactly to win a championship. It also wasn't to lose in the second round. Like the goal was just to play and let the results lie. Like if you ended up going to the championship and winning the finals, that's great. But the goal was to give yourself enough data points necessary to make the next move. Where does that come in for you? Well, it comes in for you whenever we're on this podcast daily through the offseason, all summer long. That, company line, so to say, is out the window now. Like now you've got to go make the moves. Now you've got to go improve the roster. Now you've got to go take these data points and implement them because we have a vast season long of clear and indicative flaws of this roster for as good as they were. Now you've got to go address them, and you have to put faith in Sam Presti and in this organization that they're going to go address them. And if they don't, then the conversation does change. But the goal for this season all along was very clear. Like the goal for this season was let the chips fall where they may. And I think that we can get short-sighted in the fact of this was a 10th seed that needed help to be a 10th seed last year. Right? It took these Dallas Mavericks, who are now going to their second conference finals in 3 years, it took these Dallas Mavericks to tank away 2 games for a sub-500 Thunder team to get into the playoffs and to get into the play-in. Like this is still an exceptional season for OKC. And you're on the doorstep with 2 double-digit leads of going to a Game 7 back in the Paycom Center where anything can happen. And you got one real game that felt thundery, right? And you can argue 2 because they also got Game 1. But like this season is going to be an overwhelming success. But I think that this game is going to make the narratives louder. If you were sick and tired of hearing about the big man and the rebounding, that's not going away. It's only going to be amplified. It's only going to be amplified. We're back after this talking about Thunder basketball and Game 6. But first one's here right now, but our good friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. Check out LinkedIn Jobs today to post your job for free on their fantastic hiring process that they have for you and their fantastic job board. Check it out. It's great. And you're going to want to see it on LinkedIn Jobs because LinkedIn Jobs is great. So we know that if you're a small business owner, if you're trying to find a qualified professional fast and in the right role, that's why you want to check LinkedIn Jobs because LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just another job site or another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which are there to help you get your hire the right time, the first time through. It gives you access to those professionals and streamlines that process for you because we know you need to hire someone quick if you're a small business owner, and that's why many small businesses, including 2.5 million small businesses, have used LinkedIn Jobs for their hiring process. So go post your job for free at linkedinjobs.com/LockedInNBA. That's linkedinjobs.com/LockedInNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. linkedinjobs.com/LockedInNBA. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here talking Thunder basketball, including in the offseason. This is not going away. So subscribe, like, review. It's full coverage here, even in the summertime. So we talked bigger picture. It was kind of sporadic in segment 1. Let's get into the weeds of game number 2. First and foremost, as we said before the break, if you're tired of hearing about the big man or you're tired of hearing about rebounding or the lack thereof, get ready. It's going to be a summer full of it. Like, I promise you, as mock drafts come out and as draft speculation comes out, get ready to learn Zach Edey, buddy. Like, they're going to mock Zach Edey to the Thunder every chance they get. And we'll spend many pods talking about if that's right or wrong, including our annual draft player profile and projection series. But it's going to happen because whenever you look at this series, you look at this game, this was a game where the Thunder at multiple points had control of it. You had a 10-point lead in the first quarter. You had a more than double-digit lead in the second quarter. You swelled up a 17-point lead in the third quarter. Then you got above double digits at the end of the third quarter. And then you got on the cusp of double figures at the start of the fourth quarter. Like, multiple times in this game, in this 48-minute period, did you have huge leads that should have sent you to a Game 7 and given you a chance to play on your home floor to advance to the Western Conference Finals. And instead, what dooms them down the stretch is possessions like this. Possessions where you're up 4 and the Mavericks go to the free throw line, split the difference at the line, get the rebound, kick it out to 3. It's a 4-point play. Derek Lively was massive in this series. Daniel Gafford was massive in this series. The rebounding was massive in this series as Dallas works the glass 47-31 over OKC in this one. Now, I think that part of Gafford and Lively's offensive success comes from them having better pick-and-roll ball handlers to get them the basketball off these rolls and attention laid at the feet of Luka and Kyrie in them. But also, you cannot overestimate the amount of nasty that Dallas had and the lack thereof that Oklahoma City had. Whether you want to attribute that to size in the sense of height, or you want to attribute that to size in the sense of width, or you want to attribute that to whatever you want to attribute it to, the bottom line is the Thunder have to get meaner. They have to get tougher. They were absolutely punked physically in multiple points of this series. That has to change this summer. However you want to do it, it has to change. So the big man narrative is not going away anytime soon. And the loudest point of this was whenever you went double big, the best you can do. This is where it's hard to pin this on Mark, right? The best you can do is putting in Chet and J. Will together. And that was the lineup that led up that four-point play. That was the lineup that could not protect the paint, could not protect the rebound, the glass, in a 4-point game late. And so I don't think that it needs some dramatic change. If you listen to the show before, you know that I'm a proponent to the way that the Thunder want to play. And I'm a proponent to not going and getting a big that contrasts how the Thunder want to play. There's a couple layers to it, though, right? You need to push Jay Will down the totem pole, if you will. Like, that can't be your only tool in the toolbox. Like, I think that Jay Will, for sure, has a role in this league, for sure has a role in this team. I think that Jay Will is better than what many fans give him credit for, but it can't be your only chess move. So how do you upgrade that spot? Just throwing out a random name like a Larry Nance Jr. could upgrade that spot. Somewhat, you have to do a little bit of an upgrade that's not just like for example, bringing in Larry Nance Jr. would not completely overhaul your roster or change your identity or change what you want to do, but it'd give you a tool that can kind of fit with what OKC wants to do. Like, there's obvious fits that like just don't work out. Like the Andre Drummond beating of the drum of him. Like, would it have made you feel better if the Thunder went and traded for Andre Drummond and never played him, and like he was treated like Bismack Biyombo? Like, that would have really made you feel better. Like, you've got to. It's a tough blend to find, like this perfect middle ground big man to kind of pseudo fit the style, but also give you a curveball look. But it's out there. You got to go find it. You got to go acquire it. So, while I don't believe that the Thunder should just like go all in on moving Chet to the power forward and bringing in Zach Edey and starting this weird lineup, I don't believe any of that. But I do believe that you got to give yourself the opportunity. You got to give yourself the tool in your toolbox. And hey, I have no fault of them not doing it yet. Like slow playing this is the right decision. Because the worst decision would be you getting that small taste of success, which again, Andre Drummond, let's use him for example. Like, a lot of you have spent this series talking Andre Drummond. He's not the difference in this series, honestly. The Thunder would not have played him all that much because of his lack of play fit. And for the majority of this series, he's not helping you shoot the ball better. Like, you shot the ball poorly. He's not adding anything to that. Like, that, this is just the bottom line. So, finding that middle ground will be huge, but that narrative of the big man and rebounding is only going to get louder and louder and louder. The lessons that you learn of how important rebounding is, of how important it is to just play an entire 7-game series like you're about to be eliminated, like the Mavericks did, that's huge as well. The only real game you can say that the Mavericks lacked, competitive fire would be in game 1, where they had this weird history of like Jason Kidd's never won a round 1 game as a game 1 game as a head coach. He's never won a game 1 game as head coach. And he's taken the Mavericks to two of the last 3 Western Conference Finals. Like, that's insane. But other than that game, the Mavericks were the more hungry team. The Mavericks were the more physical team. The Mavs had the more effort-given team, energy-given team, which is a stark contrast to how the Thunder had been all season long. The Thunder outworked everybody in the regular season. They outworked everybody nightly. And I wonder how much of that this was their first go-around. And instead of wanting to get too wired up, they tried to mellow too far out. And they've got to find that middling portion. And then you have Mark, who I still stand by the take I had 2 months in the job for him. Like 2 months into the job, I still had the take of he is the best coach in Thunder history. Still believe that. He's got to learn too. There were instances in this game, in this series, where like the Mavs go on a 13-0 run and he kind of lets the guys play. And that's been his style, but at certain times you need to change that style, I think. I think that getting away with stuff, you've got to cut your losses at times. For example, the Thunder took Shai out after that 13-0 Mavs run, where the Mavs were building momentum and the Mavs had really swung the game, and Shai's now on the bench. And what happened after that? The Thunder got to stop. And then there's a 3 seconds call on the Mavericks, where that's real-time minutes that you're going to get back. Like, that's a huge stoppage. Then you get back-to-back fouls on Dallas to put OKC on the line, which was, again, more real-time stoppage. At that point, you get a successful, you're successful in stealing minutes for Shai on the bench in the playoffs, where you have to play these guys to the brink. Like, you have to play these guys more than you could ever imagine. So after that, I would have called the timeout, which gets you even more real-time rest for Shai, and put him back in. Because in that span where you're stealing these real-time minutes, the Thunder scored 2 points. And the Thunder still had the momentum. And instead, the Thunder tried to squeeze some more time out of it by going to Giddey. Then they played Giddey and Shai together, and Shai ends up playing 42 minutes. 42 minutes is not anything to sneeze at. The 42 minutes came at kind of an odd mixture, if you will. But by the same token, Luka played 44. Right? And 2 minutes sounds stupid on the surface. But in a 1 point game, 2 minutes are huge. For a guy who played perfectly, right? There are only a couple of things you can pick apart about Shai's game. Number one, the foul on PJ at the end. To me, that's just basketball, right? Like you're trying to make a play. You're going to call for a foul. They reviewed it. They still thought it was a foul. It is what it is. Like that's just basketball. It's hard to fault people for playing hair on fire style basketball with the series in the balance, because by that same breath, had Shai just sat at the slot and let PJ shoot that and he made it, you'd all be waxing poetically about how the players don't care anymore and about how they don't have any heart or whatever, or they're lazy. So I can't kill Shai for that foul as much as he's going to beat himself up for it. The only other part of his game that you can really pick apart is that he went 4 for 7 from the free throw line. Just like it doomed Dallas in game 4, it doomed OKC here in game 6. That's how small the margins are. But other than that, he played a perfect game. And he played 42 minutes whenever their superstar played 44. I think that comes with, not necessarily a ramping up, but okay, now you've felt what it's like to play 42 minutes in a playoff series. Go into the summertime, go into next season where you're not necessarily trying to prove as much in the regular season, with the goal in mind of, hey, by the end of the year, come April, you're playing dang near 48 minutes. So again, 2 minutes sounds stupid to quibble with, but in a game this close, I think it does matter. Coming up, let's talk and put a bow on this game, and then we're going to have pods every single day, because that's what we do here at Locked On Thunder, breaking down this season, exit interviews, and putting a bow on this season as we head into the offseason with a ton of rumors, speculation, ways to improve this roster, and more. But first, once here right now, our good friends over at eBay Motors. Check out eBay Motors today, because they understand that just like building a championship team, it takes patience, drive, and passion. The formula for winning a championship is the same that keeps your ride or die car alive at eBay Motors. They help you maintain your vehicle and level up the peak performances with superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from, it's your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, your parts are available with your ride every time. The first time, your money back. Plus, with eBay Motors, you're going to be burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you want to choose from at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home the huge win. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Terms and conditions apply. eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit is only available for U.S. customers only. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. I think that you learned a lot about this Thunder team this season. I think you learned that their future is incredibly bright. I think you learned that there's moves to make, and I think that you learned why you have this pile of assets to go incrementally improve the team, and also, you saw a lot of talent on this roster that is going to have to get a payday, and the way that you keep this roster intact and avoid as much as you can the tax Hades that these other teams find themselves in is by winning on the margins, winning in the draft, winning on cost-controlled talent. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be for the whole offseason what we're going to discuss. As far as this game, to put a little bit of a bow on it, we'll do another pod with your questions and everything else to really end this series and grade this series tomorrow. But you look at this game, free throws, we mentioned it. The Mavs kept on having runs and kept on having these avalanche runs. The Thunder responded to almost all of them except for the very, very, very end. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. I would have still, I was left wanting more Kenrich in this game, Kenrich in this series. I think that he played exceptionally well. Josh Giddey, I think, was put in bad spots, honestly. He played 10 minutes. He was a +2, but I think it's a little unfair to him to play him with Lou Dort whenever you see how Dallas wants to defend OKC and pack the paint. It only makes them easier to do that, and thus makes life harder for those two guys, and thus makes it a more loud issue for those two guys. Defensively, of course, Josh Giddey's going to struggle a little bit. It was a mixed bag for him. I thought it was unfair to put him into the moment of the game early on. Like his first sub into the game was right as the Mavs finally started to find their footing offensively. I would have preferred like a Kaysen sub there to steady things, squash that momentum and then put Josh Giddey in. But that's just like really, way too into the weeds of like we don't really know all that's going into that process with Mark and what's all pre-planned and what's going on there. It's just something that a goofball with a microphone would believe should happen. I think that this Thunder team, you were up 64-48 at halftime, and you let it slip on the road. This could have been a more manageable situation had you came out with this level of intensity that you came out today on Wednesday at home in a pivotal Game 5. They'll learn that lesson. They'll learn what it takes to get into the paint in the postseason. They'll learn what it takes to endure a postseason run. And frankly, right, if everyone involved is doing their job right from a player development standpoint, from a roster standpoint, this is the worst that the team's going to be for quite some time. So take solace in that. The Thunder have every resource available to them, both from these players that are on the roster. Like, if you're crafting a team, you cannot look for better superstars to build around, better stars to build around than Shai, Chet, and J-Dub. In the sense of their work ethic, in the sense of their mindset, like those guys are the guys you want to build around. Those guys are guys you can trust to go out there and improve this summer. Even with a short summer, even with the Olympics, all that. There's no one in the league, hardly, that you'd trust more to build a roster than Sam Presti. It stings, it hurts, but it's good to have that hurt back in your life, first and foremost. It's a lot better than potting about a 22-win team where we're doing draft profiles by freaking March 31st, all right? And I just want to say thank you all for listening to Locked on Thunder. A lot of you in the comments, a lot of you on Twitter, a lot of you on social media in general have listened to this show since the Poku draft, since the bubble. And to see the ride the show's taken, both in ratings and the audience reach, and those of you that have stuck with it, and the ride I've been on professionally, it's been a blessing. It's been a huge hat tip to all of you. This is not goodbye by any means. We're going to be daily, back here Monday, back here talking Thunder basketball every single day. But this is a little bit of a closure to this season, which is by far the most professionally rewarding, by far the most fun to cover. And a lot of that fun is from your interactions, from seeing you guys at games, giving you guys stickers, commenting, even if you're not able to go to games, interacting on Twitter, just all of that. It all genuinely means a lot. You guys have already started DMing me about, thanking me for the season, and I cannot, it is taken aback to hear how a part of your routines, how a part of your, frankly, life that this show is. And it means a lot because you guys are literally my life. So thank you all for listening. Please subscribe. We'll be here all off season long. I'm going to give the show back to you on Sunday. So drop below your questions or your takeaways, or like your thoughts on, you can do your question or your takeaway from the series, or your thoughts on what the Thunder should do next. Drop all that down below. Drop one of the three down below on YouTube. Drop it on Twitter at Ryland_Styles. And then we're going to react to them all on Monday. And if we have to, we'll make it 2 parts on Monday and Tuesday. And then we'll have exit interview recaps. We'll have season recaps. And then it's time for draft rumors. It's time for draft prospect profiles. It's time for off-season content. Again, every single day we're here talking Thunder basketball. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this. Like traveling to New Orleans, traveling to Dallas, covering this team daily. It's all because you listen. It's not because of anything I do. I'm glad that you guys listen. I'm glad that you guys are a part of this. See you at exit interviews tomorrow morning, which luckily has come the latest of my career so far. Hopefully even later tomorrow. But until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.